One of the most frequently asked questions that I get from prospective clients as they are looking to potentially have me help them manage their PPC or Google Ads lead generation marketing campaigns is, what is my expected ROI or return on investment? And any smart business owner that's going to be investing into any type of marketing should be asking this question. And my answer to that is it depends. And I know that that's not the answer that you are looking to get as you are watching this video. And I know that's not the answer that my potential clients were hoping to get. But there is a lot of various factors that go into actually determining what your return on investment would potentially be. And there's no way to know exactly, but we can look at various factors and create some assumptions in order to help us calculate that return on investment. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the various factors that we look into to determine that return on investment, as well as I'm going to take you through a actual calculation to determine a return on investment. But before that, I just wanted to say that PPC is not a magic ATM. You can't just expect to put in $1 and expect thousands and thousands of dollars to come out of that. We had to be realistic, and we can't make pigs fly, and we also can't also expect that you're going to see a major return on investment right out of the gate, especially if you haven't done any real advertising on PPC or Google Ads before. Your ROI depends on various factors. I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. But I want to say that for a lot of local service-based businesses, a good benchmark to be at is between a 3 to 5 return on investment. So that means for every $1,000 you put into advertising, you're getting about $3,000 to $5,000 back. But that's once things are dialed in. And if you've dipped your toes in any type of PPC, Google advertising, you know that there's a learning period and there's a period of ramp up, and just expect that you're not going to be able to get a return on investment right out of the gate. It's going to take some time. Most campaigns don't hit peak ROI in 2 weeks. It can take up to 90 days to truly get ramped up. That doesn't mean you're not going to get any leads. That doesn't mean you're going to be completely losing, but it just depends on various factors I'm going to talk about right now. So let's take you through the different things that you need to understand before we calculate return on investment. So number one is your industry competition. How saturated is it in your market? How many people are actually, businesses are actually advertising for the service that you are also looking to advertise on? In other words, what's your average cost per click? The more competition there is in the PPC market, the higher your CPC is going to be naturally. Just for an example here, I work with personal injury lawyers, and I work with a lot of other type of service-based businesses, but just as an example, with personal injury lawyers in Vegas, if we're talking about PPC, their average cost per click is anywhere from $800 to $1,000. And that's just for a click. That's not for a lead, and that's also not for an actual customer or client. You need to factor, well, if my average cost per click is at least $800 minimum, I'm going to need at least 10 clicks. And that's if you have a good conversion rate to even get one lead from that. So do the numbers actually make sense? And that's why we do these forecasts. It's to see, does this even make sense? I have a video that already breaks down how to calculate your average cost per click and also how to calculate your average cost per lead. And that's tied into how much you should spend on Google Ads and also ties into this topic of this video. I'll go ahead and link that in the description below for you to check out. The other thing that you need to understand is, what is your average customer lifetime value? And that's something that a lot of business owners don't understand, but you need to understand, out of the lifetime of your customers, how much do they actually spend with you? If you are a nail salon and you charge $100 for a full set of nails, that's your average customer is looking for that, then you could say, well, that's the cost per visit, but they would come back every 6 weeks or 4 weeks, and then you can do the calculation on that and see, how long do they typically retain or stay with you, and how much do they typically spend. I'm just throwing that as an example. If you're an attorney, personal injury, the likelihood of someone getting into a major catastrophic injury again is unlikely, but could potentially happen. But an average cost per client, let's just say an average auto accident is going to yield the personal injury lawyer about $5,000 after all the different fees. So that's what we would use to determine what that average customer lifetime value would be. So look at your numbers, determine what your average customer lifetime value is. Then we want to look at your sales process. What is your lead to customer rate, or your closing rate? That's another way to put it. If I were to give you 10 leads right now, qualified leads, how many of those would you be able to convert? And I want you to be conservative with that, because a lot of clients think that their closing rate is really high, but in reality, it's probably between 20 to 30%. And I'll talk about that more as we get into the calculation section, but you need to know what your sales process is and your lead to customer rate. Another important factor is your ad performance and your website or landing page performance. What's your average click-through rate? What is your average cost per lead? And then what is your conversion rate? I'm going to add cost per lead in here because that's also super important. That wasn't mentioned but on here, but you need to know what your average cost per lead, your click-through rate, your conversion rate is. And conversion rate, that ties into how well your website's or landing page is designed to convert the traffic into actual customers. If you have a really poorly designed website that loads really slowly, that doesn't do a good job in conveying the value to your potential leads, you're going to have a major drop off. The lower your conversion rate, the lower your return on investment is ultimately going to be. The lower your click-through rate is to, the lower your potential could be to actually get leads, and also affects everything else. It's a domino effect. So with that being said, I'm going to take you through the actual ROI calculator that I'm going to link in the description below for you to go ahead and check out and potentially follow along if you would like. So I'm just going to say, for example here, let's say that you are a carpet cleaning company and you are spending at $10,000 a month in advertising on Google pay-per-click advertising. And you know from your own testing in the past, because you've done your own advertising, that your average cost per lead is $50. If you don't know what your average cost per lead is, check out the video that I'm going to link below on how much should you spend, because that's going to show you how to go ahead and calculate your actual cost per lead. But if you already know this number, what your current cost per lead is from Google, you can just plug that in here directly. But if you don't know that number, you're going to have to make some assumptions about how well your website's designed and also your click-through rate in order to determine what this average cost per lead would be. So from that, we're going to determine that with $10,000 a month in ad spend and average cost per lead of $50, we're going to get 200 leads per month. Now, based off of that, we're going to need to determine what the lead to customer rate or closing rate is. This is the rate at which you and your team could close these leads. So if I were to give you 200, let's just make this simple. If I were to give you 10 leads right now, your team 10 leads, how many of those would your team be able to close? And I want you to be extra conservative with this. Give me that number and then cut it in half, because a lot of potential clients that I talk to, they say that if I were to get 10 good qualified leads right now, I'll be able to close all 10 of them. That's not how it works. In reality, the number that tends to be what I see is probably between a 20 to 30% if you're good. If you're good. So I'm just going to assume that we're going to fall somewhere in the line of 25%. So that means that if I gave you 100 leads, you'd be able to close 25 of them. Let's talk about your average customer per month. So that is just a calculation that's automatically calculated in this calculator. And that's determined from various factors, your leads per month, and then your customer rate. And then from there, we're going to get our average customer lifetime value. And I'm going to say lifetime value in here. Not just a one-time visit, but if you have recurring business, that's also important to calculate in here. Because like I said, if you're a nail salon and you only, one visit is around $100, if you do a good job, hopefully people will be coming back. You're going to be getting that recurring business. So we need to factor in that in order to determine what your average customer lifetime value could potentially be. From there, we are going to estimate your revenue, and your revenue is calculated by using your average customers per month multiplied by your average customer lifetime value. So your estimated revenue is determined based off of that. And then from there, we are going to have your ROI calculated as 19. So this means that for every $1,000 that you put into Google Ads, you are going to be getting $19,000 back. Now that sounds like a very high number, and that's amazing. That's a great return on investment. But you need to make sure that your numbers are realistic, especially from a cost per lead perspective. Like, are you getting this from real data that you already have in your account, or are you making assumptions that your conversion rate is a certain percentage and your click-through rate is a certain percentage? Be conservative here. You don't want to overshoot it and then see your potential ROI and you're like, oh, this is great. This is what I'm going to, expect to get. Because the reality is you're not going to know the real number until you actually start to test. And, you might think your average cost per click is $10, but then when you actually start running the ads and seeing how competitive it is, it's like $50, then that completely throws all these numbers off because your average cost per lead is going to go up. If you think that your conversion rate is potential conversion rate on your landing page or website is super high, you're going to be able to convert 50% of the traffic. It's very unlikely that you're going to do that. Be conservative. And you're going to be able to get a number that's going to be a lot more realistic versus trying to shoot for the stars here. So that's what I have to say with that. So yeah, if you have any questions on the ROI calculation, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And I will definitely have this sheet linked in the description for you to check out. And I would love it if you could give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And please subscribe to my channel. I post videos every week about Google Ads. And if you are looking for help on your Google advertising, you're looking for an audit or managed services, and you're spending at least $2,000 to $3,000 per month, then feel free to check out the link in the description. And I would be more than happy to have a discovery call with you to see how I could potentially help you. See you in the next one.